brand new high heel stilettos.
es un buen día. love their playstyle. They're there in late game, mid-ground, fragging out. I love them.
100%. And also, look, let's be real. Shio and Levin, they're going Tayson, Thomas, HD. We've already talked about why they're so good. Would it be an FNCS broadcast without Levin hyping up Tayson? Like, I don't think so. I'm sure we'll hear plenty of it throughout the next 6 games as well, though.
It always happens, right? It's always like he jumps on the train, then he's like, you know what? No, Tayson's not doing well. Then it's literally the next game where Levin decides to say, look, Tayson, I don't think you're doing well, man. And then bam, Tayson's like, okay, Levin, my bad. I've been playing around the whole time. Let me go ahead and get a victory out. And then that's it. Levin's come full circle. He's like, yeah, I never left. I always believed in Tayson. I get it. It happens. But you know what? It's about that time. So guess what? We're going to introduce you to our casters. You saw their names. It's Shy Wager. It's Levin 2K. They'll be with us for these 6 games. So friends, let's kick it over to you. Say hello.
Thank you so much, Zeke, Reese, and Boop. A fresh new desk for a brand new chapter of the FNCS. And with that being said, welcome to Duos. My name is Shy Wager, joined by the legend Levin 2K. And Levin, the atmosphere, the pressure for these players around this first qualifier is at an all-time high.
Yeah, it's high indeed, but you know what they say, pressure makes diamonds or it bursts pipes, and we'll see what these players are today. Look, I'm excited. I can't believe though, Boop thinks he's the most handsome person on the broadcast. I don't know where that's come from, mate. You gotta relax. Nevertheless though, right, we got a huge day, big games, right? The players have already been playing today. You know, there's already a sort of level of expectation of what these guys can come out and do, and it's about replicating that, right? Sure, you were great, you made top 50 in the last round. Can you come out and get top 8 in this one?
Yeah, and the last round was so different for a lot of players as well, right? One less hour, a few less games than they're used to. It felt like it was impossible to play some of these games. You needed everything to go perfect, or you just basically went home. So after that grueling process, just finally surviving, getting a breath of fresh air, I'm wondering how things switch up here, because Levin, you know, in these rounds going all the way for the finals, it's a very different atmosphere entirely. Plus, every player might be at a new drop because someone else didn't qualify. It's very, very different to the regular game we usually see played in any Cash Cup or different types of Fortnite.
Yeah, the ability to adapt is key, and like you mentioned, there are players who will be switching up drop spots from what they're accustomed to, but nevertheless, if you're making that decision, you have to be confident in your ability to execute that well. You know, a lot of these players have similar ideas and ideologies on how to play the game. It's about the execution, right? Who's actually going to go out and do it in these high pressure moments? And as we saw in the last round, it isn't easy whatsoever when you have all these players really at their best, looking to compete for the same goal. You know, you have to be able to do something that separates you, and that won't be easy for a lot of people in the lobby, but again, right, you know, this is your chance to show that you can do it.
No, absolutely. Like, one big thing too in terms of expectations, predictions for both of us. I mean, I think we can count it down from 3, 2, 1 and, you know, do it together. 1, 2, 3, boom. You know what I'm saying? All right, you went the wrong way. It's all good. We fused together to go for Thomas and Tayson. The desk talked about it a bit. You can highlight it a little bit. Why do you like Tayson so much, Levin? Why is it always all in for him?
I'll be real with you. This season so far, Tayson Thomas hasn't been the most impressive for them so far, right? Questions about their work ethic, questions about whether they are still 2 of the best players in the region. But the problem is with these guys is that they have Fortnite mastered, right? When it comes to the fundamentals of the game, they have that down to a T. And then when it comes to just being able to adapt to new metas, it's like this for them, man. It gets so easy. Anytime we're having a conversation about who are the best players in the game, their names will always come up. They've done really well in previous competitions, you know, running up to this one just in the past week or so. And so I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to be able to come out when the pressure is highest, when players around them are all wobbly and shaky, and really step up.
Absolutely, and we've been watching teams throughout the whole last 12 months of Fortnite, even past that, even more. Now it's all about teammates, that synergy, just being dynamic and adapting to a lot of things happening. You know, you can get punished a little bit more inside the entire duos format. You're not going to have the extra body to protect yourself when things go wrong, or to amplify and capitalize on any plays you want to make. That's a big difference too. But with that being said, games are almost underway in just a second. The big thing too, 50 different entities on the map, so many more things to worry about for a lot of players. A brand new map too, Levin, entirely. There's so much to expect for this FNCS.
Yeah, look, big adjustments, right? Big adjustments, a whole new map. If you haven't watched any Fortnite for a while, don't worry, we will get you through it, right? Explain everything to you, give you the whole rundown. I think the biggest thing, right, is going into end games, the fundamentals, who actually has those great dynamics. I think that's why Tayson and Thomas will always be big favorites, because the combinations between the two Beautiful, beautiful textbook stuff, and everybody has to try to get to that level or something there and thereabouts. So I'll be real, I'm super excited to see what plays out today.
Yeah, momentum still coming in. Joe and Vino first overall from that previous round. So many different players who just had, maybe different meetings and different types of entire environments around them game to game. Now it's all the same players in the same game, and that game is about to start. It's game number 1 of EU in the first qual. Almost there in just a second. 6 total as well that'll be there too. I mean, 11, it's nuts, right? Because when you look at just the entire section of Fortnite when it comes to just elite level lobbies, right, the top 100, 6 games, it feels like a lot. They dwindle down really fast.
Yeah, especially when, considering the fact that we're playing for top 8, you've got to have a couple games. Yeah, maybe you can allow yourself 1 or 2 games where things don't necessarily work out. But for the most part, you have to be on it game to game, and you have to be able to adapt game to game. Of course, right? There are always going to be these small tweaks that you have to make. You can see here on your screen, Tilted Towers, a POI has come back. A couple teams going to be dropping there, right? How do you go game to game in terms of what areas you claim, how you cut off other teams? There are all these little micro things that will play into how the story develops over the course of the 6 games, and ultimately things are in your hand as a player. You can't leave things at the end of it and go, oh, I got unlucky here, I got unlucky there. You have to make your own destiny in that sense.
Yeah, and the destiny is formed by relationships, and when you look at relationships between teams, it's my favorite part of the FNCS, the beef, Levin. The beef. I love the off-spawn combat. I love, just the stories throughout the season, and I feel like, Boop and Reese touched on it a little bit with Zeke too. Covert Cavern overall, that's where things are about to get super heated. Launch pads, guaranteed to have no problems for your entire game, available over there, but 3 God Squads ready to go there too.
Yeah, and I think the dynamics between the way those fights play out will just be so mesmerizing all day long, because like you said, sometimes you get teams contesting at these big spots, but oftentimes you get a clear and obvious sort of distinction between the teams, right? You got a tier 1 team there, tier 2 team, a team that's sort of in the middle between them. All the teams that are landing Covert today are teams who you could see winning the whole thing today if things were to go well.
Absolutely, and there's different tiers before what happens between, a desk towards the game starting. Right now, we'll throw it back to the desk. I got a little bit more to talk about before we get into that first game.
Appreciate you, Shy Wager, and of course, 11-2K. We're about to jump into game 1, but apparently people weren't ready. They didn't catch the battle bus. Things happen. It's okay. We're going to run this back. We're going to make sure everyone's accounted for on that battle bus, and then we're going to start off the competition. Great stuff, though. And I do like that these guys are kind of talking about the duos, the strategies, to kind of prepare. So, let's kind of talk about the new mechanics here as we're kind of warming up the bus. How much of this new loophole, these new mechanics and games, you guys think will kind of play a factor? I think, Reese, you recently made a video on, sliding, for example, right? And if you just kind of, looked at it at a glance, you'd be like, sliding, okay, it's, the same as walking, ? But it's not exactly, is it, Reese?
No, so sliding is a mechanic that I thought was going to be more utilized, and I think now is still completely underutilized when it comes to fighting specifically. So right now, if you start sliding down a slope, you're going to get increased movement speed. If you slide on flat ground, by the way, no increased movement speed. It just looks cool. That's about the height of it. Yeah. But at the same time, it can throw people off. But what I really was hoping for, though, was that people would end up using it in fights. They'd find good ways to phase into boxes, like I have. By the way, if you just slide and shoot a wall at the exact right time, you're going to phase straight into that person's box. Not seen it happen yet. If you come off of a launch pad, slide when you land, spray through someone's wall, you can go straight into their box. If someone does this, by the way, in a tournament, tag me on Twitter, because I've yet to see it in the 2 months the season's been out, and I said it when it came out. I was like, someone do this play, hit off a launch pad, slide, spray into someone's box, and pick up an elim.
I mean, there's Reese trying to farm Twitter followers again, but let's move on from that. I mean, I think sliding was... I think we all thought it was going to bring up the mechanical level of play even higher. I mean, there's a few people that have been practicing it, Vidil being one of them. He's been in the creative lobby, trying to crank it out. Seti, also one of those guys that have been, putting in the hours, as a main top of last trios, now in duos as well. He's been putting in the hours to practice those sliding. If you definitely want to see that, then you should focus on those guys. But, I don't think it's had the impact that we thought it would have. But it's a pretty cool mechanic, and I'm excited to see how, you can sort of cut off people in mid ground and low ground with that mechanic now.
I still think yet. Like, yet. There's still
yeah.
time. It's
the
one of
keyword.
those things, but it's like
Someone's going to figure it out.
Someone will figure out how to use it in fights, how to throw people off. Because like at the start of chapter 1, when people building editing, like people were like me and Zeke now, right? We're at that level. And then when the time has passed, people have gotten sufficiently better. Obviously, incredibly proficient at it. And I think sliding's going to be the same thing. It's a new mechanic. This chapter and this season just starting. Over this chapter, I think we're going to see an evolution that people get extremely proficient with it.
Yeah, I think that especially like kind of you're saying, right, with Chapter 3 Season 1 hitting, there's a brand new map that you kind of have to like forget everything from previous like Chapter 2, right? You have to just kind of wipe that away from your memory and say like, I have to learn all of these new areas, these new POIs, these new rotational patterns, where people can be, loot chests, like all this new stuff, right? So I think we haven't seen sliding quite yet come online, but I do have faith, right? Like I do think once one person does it, kind of like to your point, Reese, everyone else will see it and go, oh, like, yeah, sorry about that. Like I was trying to really learn my drop spot and make sure that I didn't lose here, but I'm going to start doing that at my drop spot, and then I definitely won't lose. You know, we'll see. We'll have to see. Now, really quickly, I just wanted to touch on the prize pool here in Chapter 3, Season 1. Now, remember, this is the prize pool going into finals, so 2 weeks from now. Take a look at this prize pool out of Europe. $1.3 million. Let's just round it up to 1.4. I don't know why. NA East, Brazil, NA West, Asia, Middle East, OCE. This is a global competition, boys, and this is a lot of prize money here in Europe.
Yeah, it's a lot of moolah, a lot of dosh getting dashed out. And obviously, remember, this is just specifically for the final. So right now, the top 8 teams that qualify through will get to play for this prize pool in the finals. That's what we're looking at once we eventually get these queuing issues sorted and we're into game. That is what you're going to be looking at in the leaderboards. The top 8 will get to play for this in 2 weeks' time.
Yep, and that is definitely what you want to do, because the new semifinal system and the heat system is so tough to get through. I mean, that is a lot of money just to be playing for, and you don't want to risk it playing the heat system because it's a little bit RNG for you, so you got to be careful.
Yeah, placing in that top 8, right? Like, if you can start just this first qualifier and hit that top 8 and just guarantee that you're going to finals, you're at least, like, locking in some amount of prize money, right? You're going to get some amount for just going to finals, and then you have to start thinking about strategies and how you can aim for that top spot. Now, of course, as I like to talk about a lot, you don't even need to win, right? Just coming in, like, top 5, you're going to see a massive jump in prize money, and that's going to get you a brand new PC, a brand new car, a brand new chair, lots of brand new things, all the snacks you could ever desire. I mean, there's a lot to play for. Now, guys, I want to toss to this real quick. Let's talk about a brand new POI that came back recently. Was recently defrosted. You know, it's Tilted Towers. Have you guys heard of Tilted Towers, Reese?
Never. This is a new POI to me. I've never heard of this place. Sick POI, honestly. Like, center map, it has the highest amount of chests total, so 57 chests in here, 198 floor spawns, tons of slurp barrels. It basically has everything you need. One of the most important parts of it is there's 20 safes, which is kind of crazy, but I mean, most of the time there's not as big of utilization for gold unless you're going to Greasy, but 32 produce boxes. This is what's really important, so you can always get a ton of peppers. Because there's just so much loot, like, teams are usually able to split this pretty well. Like, we've seen Kinzel Diciptos go here alongside Benji and Mr. Savage, who unfortunately haven't managed to make it here today, so we'll have to see who ends up qualifying through. From just quickly looking at the map, it seems to be Resac Liam, which obviously I'm a big fan of. Appears to be going there when I look at the drop map, so great POI.
I mean, it's a little bit of a tough spot, though, to play at, especially when you have this many people landing in there. I mean, it's so open. You're sort of dived in within that spot. It's a big hole. It's basically very similar to Daily Bugle, I would say. There's a lot of POIs nearby. There's people that can third-party it for free, and you just got to be a little bit careful. So I'm expecting a lot of these guys to be splitting Tilted a lot of the time. You have so much loot, like Reese mentioned, that you don't need to be fighting. I mean, that's what I'm saying every single time. Everyone should just split the spot. We should have 99 people surge, 100 people surge, and then my heart will be happy.
I mean, that would be cool. That would be sick. But I think you nailed on a really important point there, was the fact that people can rotate in early, right? There's like the loot lake up above it, which has a ton of teams land there. Right now, it seems like we've got 3 teams, and there's the 7 outpost that's up to the northeast that has the rifts in it. I think Stena and Raid are landing there. So if they're smart, they can loot that quickly. They can rotate through to the hills that are on the outside and just get some really easy sturge tags. Just bang, bang, bang on all the players. With the 3 teams who seem to be landing in Tilted right now.
Yeah, super enticing POI. I just avoid it, man. For me, it's too high skill. I will just absolutely get bodied. It's not even competition. I'm just a walking 50 pot. I just don't even go there. I do like the big change that we have seen from Chapter 3 Season 1 is that there's a lot more map space available, right? We kind of saw this in Chapter 2. a lot more trios at that time felt like they had to go to these named POIs, right? If they really wanted to secure a proper split, they had to kind of make these higher risk, high reward plays. But with this new map, it's way more open. There's a lot of these little houses, these little loot paths all around the map where you can just land and you can just say like, okay, I know this, like this is us right here. And at minimum, I know I can open a handful of chests and then we can start kind of coming up with a plan with what's next. Is there any that you guys have that are like, you think might be slept on? Maybe you're like, yo, this one place is real good.
I mean, obviously, firstly, the Cami split that we mentioned earlier, where Cami and Tikar in the puddle pond right in the center of the map. That spot is absolutely fantastic. Funnily enough, it's difficult to name exactly where these are because they're split, right? They cover such a huge amount of area. But one team who's been doing really well in a split is Lucia and Fury, who's been doing really well in the 7 outpost that's just to the southwest of Greasy Grove. They managed, I think it was like 3rd or 4th in the previous round, just doing super well out of there. Frey's team's actually contesting them right now. So these kind of 7 outposts that have the rift, that have the vault, if you can manage to get a couple other chests from some of the surrounding areas, you can definitely get yourself a good enough loot pool. Usually you'll need around like 7 chests per person, and you can definitely manage to do that in a ton of the looting path, mainly because it's duos, not necessarily just because of the map on itself as well.
Yeah, and the one that I think is slept on a lot is Jones's. I mean, there's not that many good teams that land there, but there are a decent amount of cooler boxes there. You do have those, you know, it's pretty small loot. You know, you have a very quick area to rotate past. You can loot it very, very quickly, rotate away for it. You can even get a piece of the south side near Condo Canyon. There's so much potential there for activity. But, you know, you have Kiko and Marsh right there against Mixon and Rakshus in this final. So it's going to be spicy, but I think Kiko and Marsh, they've been doing super, super well. You know, the guys from Portugal, very, very underrated. They've been slept on. I'm expecting them to do well on spawn. I have not seen them lose a spawn fight yet. Maybe I jinxed them.
Maybe, yeah, the caster curse is very real.
I'm new to this, I'm sorry.
It happens. Guys, super quick, what I want to talk about now is like this trio to now duo. Like for me, I like to try and think about this in like the terms of like everyone kind of sharing power, right? Like in our situation, there's 3 of us, so if we engage in trios, if I was to be eliminated, we still have like 66% of our power, right? In Reese and in Boop.
I mean, with us 3, it'd probably be like 95.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right. Yeah, it's all in Boop. He's got all the power. But when you're looking at like a duo, right? If one of your duos does fall, that's 50% of your power now gone. And then you're stuck in this 1v2 situation while also trying to like maintain your downed friend, right? If they've not full confirmed him, they're still down but not out, and they're kind of crawling around, and then they're kind of putting you in a position where you're like, okay, if I go for the revive, I'm playing into their hands, right? So how do you guys feel like duos should be approaching this kind of shake-up, right?
Oh, I mean, the thing I love about duos now is the clutch potential. In trios, like you mentioned before, if you're a solo, you're going up against 3 people. If you're a solo, you could be going up against 2 people. But now in duos, you're going to be a solo, and, you know, there's a bunch of solos running on the late game, and we're going to see a lot of very exciting clutches coming out. I mean, we saw, Anas in the qualifiers. I mean, this guy absolutely popped off as a solo. He got like 70 points by himself. So, you know, those are the moments that I live for. Those solo clutches, you know, you don't need to revive your teammate. You know, that guy's not important. As long as you have that confidence and you can, you know, go throughout the late game and you have a Spider-Man in your hand, I think you get top 5 pretty easy.
Definitely, and if you can't talk about clutches without talking about Thomas HD, right?
Yeah.
It's like he's made for this mode for duos to pop off, and the problem is honestly that Tayson just probably won't be eliminated that often, so we're not going to see a Thomas HD pop off. Like the way that I like to look at this usually is the fact that most of the best teams in duos are almost like shadowing each other. You know, they're staying super close to each other. Whoever's leading is that going to be player opening it. He's looking one direction. The player behind him is acting like a shadow, looking exactly the same way. If they tarp, he's going to follow too. So a lot of the times these clutch potentials can happen, but a lot of times just when you see a big spray coming onto that first person, he goes down quickly and it's like, right, Thomas HD, it's your time now, let's go.
I mean, I think it's a good thing that you mentioned the spraying as well. I mean, this meta is very, very tough to play as duos. I mean, we have very high fire rate weapons with the MK7 and the Stinger SMGs. I mean, these guns, if you're in a bush and there's someone looking at you, you are gone within a second. So you got to be very, very careful in these situations. To not, you know, you got to cover your back. You got to be careful, and you know, there's going to be a lot of solo clutches today for sure.
Yeah, and I think like utilization of an armored wall becomes even more important in endgame, right? Like usually if someone in endgame is down to wood, it's like this is the flashing signs, right? It's like this guy has no materials. He does not have much. This is a free elimination. This is free points right here. So once you down to that wood, like utilizing those armored walls is super efficient to try and keep yourself away from focus from, say, a height team, from a low ground team, especially if you're on like the dead side of the zone. You can place one on the wall, cover the majority angles and be totally fine. So it's like there are a ton of counters in there when it comes to in-game, but hard to play.
I love that too, because when you think about it, right, like if you have none of these armored walls and you're able to like eliminate another duo rather that has not utilized them, because again, these are so pivotal, right? They can just buy you this massive window of survivability. And it's always like, do I use it now? Like, is it that time? Or maybe if I just wait this additional minute to make sure I can get this high ground, I can use it to secure something later. And it is that very like high risk, high reward, right? If you burn it too soon, you're going to get sprayed. Or maybe the storm moves away and you just don't get to utilize it at all. But at the same time, if you save it and you're like looking for that perfect opportunity, that opportunity may never present itself. So a lot of that is, we're going to see these like kind of back and forth. It's always this constant mind game that I love to see in Fortnite specifically. And to kind of touch on like the speed, right? Like the TTK, the time to be eliminated, so to speak. I like the speed. TTE. Good. There we go.
Come on.
I like I'm trying, man. I'm keeping up. I'm doing my best. All right. I'm so old now. It just happens. The time to be eliminated is so much shorter, right? In the past, we've seen things like you walk around a corner with your pump shotgun out, you do 200, and that's it. The player's gone, right? And that's it. They can't even really like react. Now with this high speed meta, a lot of these players, they're gonna get beamed, but if you react quick enough, you can still catch yourself, right? You can still put up any kind of defenses or move away, hide behind these corners.